You imagine thinking I'd marry him. So delusional. She laughed after I proposed in front of her family. I said, you're right, left the party, and packed my stuff while she kept celebrating. She came home to an empty apartment and a text. Imagine thinking I'd stay. A week later, she showed up at my new place sobbing. Sup Reddit. My girlfriend humiliated me when I proposed in front of her family and friends. So I did this and made her regret every word. Grab some popcorn. This one's intense. Name's Cole, 30 male. Bailey and I met at her dad Hank's shop. He ran a fleet maintenance company, and I was the new guy he'd hired to handle the heavy equipment. She came in one afternoon to drop off lunch for her old man, and I was elbow deep in a transmission rebuild, grease up to my shoulders, looking like something that crawled out of an oil pan. She laughed at a joke I made about the truck fighting back, asked me questions about the work like she actually cared. For the first year, everything was good. We'd cook together on weekends. She'd handle prep while I worked the stove, and we'd eat on the balcony watching the sun go down. She'd bring me lunch at the shop sometimes, sit on an overturned bucket and talk while I worked, asking questions about the engines. She got along with my buddy Garrett, didn't complain when I came home smelling like diesel, seemed genuinely proud when I got promoted to lead tech. There was this one night, maybe 8 months in, when her car broke down on the highway. I drove 40 minutes to get her, fixed the alternator in a parking lot with a flashlight between my teeth, and she looked at me like I'd just pulled her out of a burning building. Said she felt safe with me in a way she'd never felt before. Her parents loved me. Hank treated me like the son he never had. Taught me things about the business that went beyond just wrenching. Her mom Susan sent me home with leftovers after every Sunday dinner and once told me quietly that I was the first boyfriend of Bailey's she'd ever actually liked. Then something started shifting around month 14. Bailey got promoted at her finance job downtown. New office, new coworkers, new friends named Tara and Britt who looked at me like I was furniture that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Suddenly, my work boots by the door were embarrassing. My truck was too loud. My hands were never quite clean enough for the restaurants she wanted to try. But I stuck around. Because I remembered who she was before. Because Hank and Susan still treated me like family. Because I'm stubborn. And I thought the woman I fell for was still in there somewhere. The night everything ended was Bailey's 30th birthday. Her parents had organized a big party at their house. 50 people easy. Family, friends, co-workers. Hank had strung lights across the backyard. Susan made enough food to feed an army. I'd been helping set up since noon, moving tables, hanging decorations, making sure the sound system worked. I'd also been carrying a ring in my pocket for 3 weeks. $1,400. A round solitaire she'd pointed out in a jewelry store window, back when she still pointed at things she liked without calculating their resale value. The plan was simple. Wait until the cake, pull her aside, propose privately. I'm not a public spectacle kind of guy. Never have been. But Bailey's sister Margot caught me checking my pocket for the 10th time and figured it out immediately. Margot was 3 years younger than Bailey and the polar opposite. She worked as a vet tech, drove a 10-year-old hatchback. She'd always been cool with me. Sometimes I got the feeling she was the only one in Bailey's new circle who still saw me as a person instead of a liability. Wait, you're proposing tonight? Margot had asked, catching me by the refreshment table. I told her that was the plan. She got quiet for a second, like she was deciding whether to say something. Then she just nodded, wished me luck, and walked away with this look I couldn't quite figure out. The party was in full swing by 8. Bailey was holding court near the patio, surrounded by Tara and Britt and a handful of coworkers I'd met maybe twice. She looked good. She always looked good. I waited until the crowd started thinning after cake, caught Bailey's eye and nodded toward the side of the house, away from everyone. She rolled her eyes but came over anyway, Tara and Britt trailing behind her like they always did. I asked if we could talk alone for a second. She said whatever I needed to say, I could say in front of her friends. Tara smirked. Britt pulled out her phone like she was expecting content. I should have walked away right there, but I was already holding the ring, already committed, and things were moving whether I liked it or not. Sometimes you make the wrong call, because backing out feels harder than just going through with it. I got down on one knee right there on Hank's side lawn, with 3 people watching. I didn't do a big speech, just told her I loved her, that these 3 years had meant everything to me, and asked if she'd marry me. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Then Bailey laughed, not a happy laugh. This sharp, dismissive sound that cut right through the evening air. Oh my God, she said, loud enough that people on the patio turned to look. Are you serious right now? I said I was. She looked at Tara and Britt like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Can you believe this? At my birthday party? More people were drifting over now. I could see Hank and Susan at the edge of the patio, frozen mid-conversation. Bailey's aunt, a couple of her coworkers, everyone watching. Bailey turned back to me with this look I'd never seen before. Just pure contempt. Cole, you're a mechanic. You fix trucks. You come home smelling like an engine and you think I'm going to marry you? Tara snorted. Britt was definitely recording now. I mean, it's been fun, Bailey continued, her voice carrying across the whole backyard now. You're reliable. You're stable. But marriage? To you? She laughed again. You, so delusional. Imagine thinking I'd actually marry him. She said him, not you. Him. Like I wasn't even standing there. Like I was a thing she was describing to strangers. I meant for more than this, she said, gesturing at me with her free hand. More than a guy whose biggest ambition is a bigger toolbox. I've been waiting for something better to come along. You were just keeping the seat warm. Dead silence across the yard now. I could see Susan's hand covering her mouth. Hank looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Margot was pushing through the crowd toward us, her face furious. I closed the ring box, stood up, brushed off my knee. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if I'd cry or beg or make a scene. I did none of that. I looked at her smirking friends, at the phone still recording, and I just went cold. Like something just shut off. You're absolutely right, I said. My mistake. I turned and walked toward the side gate. Didn't run, didn't storm off, just walked like a man who finally got it. Hank called my name. I heard Margot say something sharp to Bailey. Heard Susan start crying. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. Got in my truck. Started the engine. Drove away from 3 years of my life like I was leaving a job site at the end of shift. The only thought in my head was to go home. Take back everything that's mine. Disappear. Bailey and I had been living in a townhouse I'd found. 2 bedrooms. Small garage where I kept my tools. Decent neighborhood. I paid 65% of the rent even though she technically made more on paper after her promotion. But Bailey had student loans she never talked about, credit card debt from before we met, and a credit score that made landlords nervous. So I covered the real bills while she handled her image. I'd also been paying for her car insurance for the last 8 months because she'd gotten 2 speeding tickets and her rates had tripled. Paid for the new tires on her car last spring. Covered the vet bills when she'd insisted on getting a cat she didn't actually take care of. Put my name on the internet and utilities because her credit was worse than she let anyone know. All those details were running through my head as I drove home. Like I was taking inventory. A mental checklist of every thread connecting me to her that needed to be cut. I changed out of my good clothes into work jeans and a shop shirt. Same thing I'd wear for a big job. Started in the garage. My tools alone were worth more than her entire wardrobe. Every socket, every wrench, every diagnostic scanner, all mine. Into the truck bed. Took my air compressor, my welding equipment, the workbench I'd built myself. The garage was empty in 40 minutes. Living room next. My books, my records. The TV I'd bought, not that she ever acknowledged that. The sound system. The actual comfortable furniture that I'd owned before we moved in together. Left her decorative nonsense. The cat was sitting on the kitchen counter watching me work. His name was Chester, and I was pretty sure he hated Bailey almost as much as I did now. She'd wanted a cat for Instagram purposes, then promptly ignored him for 2 years. I fed him. I cleaned his box. I took him to the vet. I looked at Chester, and he looked at me. The carrier was in the hall closet. He walked right in without a fight. Even the cat knew it was time to bounce. Kitchen. My cast iron collection. My good knives. The espresso machine I'd saved up for. Left the decorative copper pots she'd hung on the wall. I found all the documentation for the utilities. Called the electric company from the townhouse landline and scheduled a transfer out of my name at the end of the billing cycle. Same with internet. Same with the water company. All in my name. All about to become her problem. Her car insurance was auto-paying from my account. I logged in on my phone and canceled the payment authorization. If she wanted coverage, she'd need to set up her own policy. 3 hours. That's how long it took. The townhouse looked gutted. Half-empty shelves. Gaps where furniture used to be. I sat on the kitchen floor with Chester's carrier next to me and pulled out my phone. Her contact photo was still smiling at me. I sent one message. Imagine thinking I'd stay. Hit send. Blocked her number. Blocked her on everything. One by one. Thorough. Garrett answered on the second ring. Didn't even ask what was wrong. Just said he'd meet me at his place with the truck bay open. 15 years of friendship and not once had he let me down. I loaded the last of my stuff and drove across town with Chester riding shotgun in his carrier. Surprisingly calm. Garrett was already outside when I pulled up. He took one look at the loaded truck bed, at the cat carrier, at my face, and just shook his head. She finally showed you who she was, huh? I told him she'd done it in front of 50 people at her birthday party. He was quiet for a second. Then, good. Now you can stop pretending you didn't already know. He wasn't wrong. We unloaded everything into his garage. He had a spare room I could use. His wife, Dana, came out in her robe, took one look at the situation, and went straight to the kitchen. Came back with sandwiches, coffee, and a blanket. Didn't ask a single question. Just handed me a plate and said the guest room had clean sheets. Later, when Garrett and I were finishing up in the garage, he asked me what happened. I told him the short version. He listened, nodding slowly, then shook his head. Man, I saw it coming, he said. Just didn't know how to tell you. You were so convinced she was going to snap out of it. I asked why he hadn't said anything. He shrugged. Would you have listened? Fair point. Dana had a different take when I talked to her the next morning. She'd known Bailey's type before. Said some people see relationships like transactions. They're always calculating what they're getting versus what they're giving. And as soon as the math doesn't work for them, they start looking for the exit. The cruelty at the party wasn't some accident. It was on purpose. Bailey wanted an audience when she rejected me. Wanted witnesses to prove she could do better. The breakdown didn't come until around 3 a.m. Not dramatic. Just me sitting on the edge of an unfamiliar bed in the dark, hands shaking, chest tight, finally letting myself feel everything that had just happened. 3 years. Gone in a single speech at a birthday party. And the worst part was, she'd meant every word. She hadn't been cruel by accident. She'd been cruel because she finally felt safe enough to say what she'd been thinking the whole time. I let myself have that one night of being wrecked. Then I promised myself this would never happen again. I took 2 days off work, told Hank I had a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie. Hank called me back an hour later, not as my boss, as the father of the woman who just publicly humiliated me in his backyard. Cole, I don't even know what to say, son. His voice was heavy, tired. Susan and I had no idea she felt that way. We're sick about it. I told him it wasn't his fault. Told him I appreciated everything he'd done for me over the years. Told him I'd understand if things needed to change at work. Long pause on his end. Then, son, you're the best tech I've got. You have a job here as long as you want one. What Bailey did doesn't change that. Meant more than he probably knew. Margot texted me that same afternoon. First message was just, I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I asked what she meant. Took her an hour to respond. When she did, it was a wall of text. She'd overheard Bailey talking to Tara and Britt the week before, laughing about how I'd probably propose soon and how pathetic it was going to be. How she was planning to say no, but wanted to milk the relationship a little longer because I was useful. Margot hadn't known how to tell me, hadn't been sure it was her place. She said she'd confronted Bailey about it the night before the party, asked her sister straight up if she loved me or if she was just using me. Bailey had laughed it off, called Margot naive, said she wouldn't understand because she'd never had a real relationship. I told Margot I didn't blame her, asked her to keep me updated on anything important, just so I'd know what was coming. Margot agreed, said she was furious with Bailey, said their parents were devastated, said Bailey didn't seem to get why everyone was upset with her. That last part tracked. Bailey had always had a blind spot about consequences. The first attempt at contact came on day 3. Unknown number. Voicemail. I listened to it once. Her voice was irritated, not apologetic. Cole, this is ridiculous. You need to come back and get your stuff out of the garage. I'm not storing your junk. And why is the electricity scheduled for disconnect? Did you seriously cancel my car insurance? Call me back. This is so immature. Notice the order of priorities there. First the inconvenience to her, then the utilities, then the insurance. Nothing about what she'd done. No apology. I blocked the number. Garrett had a theory about people like Bailey. He called them consequence blind. They just can't connect what they do to what happens after. In her mind, she'd just been honest. Everything falling apart was a separate thing that was happening to her for no reason. Dana had a different theory. She thought Bailey knew exactly what she was doing and was now realizing the support system she'd been leaning on had walked away. The anger wasn't confusion. It was panic wearing a mask. Day 5. The utilities shut off. I know because Margot texted me asking if I knew the power had gone out at the townhouse. I said I might have scheduled a disconnect before I left. She sent back a laughing emoji. Day 6. Bailey's insurance lapsed. Margot said she'd found out when she tried to get her registration renewed at the DMV. Apparently there was a scene. Lots of crying in a government office. The staff was not moved. Day 7. The landlord called me. Our lease was joint, and he'd gotten complaints from Bailey about the utility situation. I explained calmly that I'd moved out and would not be returning. That I'd pay my half of any early termination fee, but would not be covering her portion. He asked if I could put that in writing. I said I'd have it to him by end of day. Drew up a simple letter. My obligations. My payment. Her responsibility for the rest. Sent it certified mail so there'd be a record. Bailey was on her own now. Everything I'd been quietly handling for years was suddenly her problem. And from what Margot was telling me, she was not handling it well. The second attempt at contact happened on day 8. Different unknown number. She'd borrowed someone's phone. I answered without saying anything. Cole, we need to talk. Her voice was softer now. The anger had shifted to something that sounded almost like fear. I think I overreacted at the party. Everyone's being so dramatic about it. Can we just meet up and talk about this like adults? I let the silence sit there. I miss how things were, she continued. You always handled everything. Bills, appointments, fixing things. I didn't realize how much I depended on that. Can you just come back and we can figure this out? You humiliated me in front of your entire family, I said, keeping my voice flat. You said you were waiting for something better. You said I was keeping the seat warm. I didn't mean it like that. You said him, not you. Him. Like I wasn't even a person standing right there. Nothing from her end. I settled the lease and my share of the termination fee. Your portion is on you. I've taken myself off all the shared accounts. There's nothing left to talk about. Cole, please. I ended the call, blocked the number. Garrett worked at the same shop as me. Different department. He handled the light trucks while I was on heavy equipment, but we shared a lunch break and plenty of overlap. Having him around made the whole thing easier. 3 weeks after the party, he came back from a parts run with some interesting news. Ran into someone who knows Bailey's friend Tara, he said, dropping into the break room chair across from me. Apparently your ex has a new boyfriend already. Some finance guy named Bryce. Works at a competing firm to hers. They met at some networking thing last week. Less than a month after publicly humiliating the man she'd been with for 3 years. I asked what Bryce was like. Garrett grinned. You know those guys who show up at car meets with leased sedans and act like they own the dealership? That guy. All flash, no substance. Talks about himself in the third person sometimes. Wears those shoes with no socks. I said he sounded like exactly what Bailey deserved. Oh, it gets better, Garrett continued. Word is he's got a reputation. Previous girlfriend found out he was running the same game on 3 other women at the same time. The whole thing blew up about a year ago. He just moved to this area to start fresh. Perfect. Bailey had been so busy mocking my life that she'd run straight into the arms of a walking red flag. The universe has a sense of humor sometimes. Margot confirmed the relationship a few days later. Said Bailey was posting constantly, "New boyfriend this, amazing connection that," really over the top about how happy she was. Meanwhile, I was getting into a routine. Work, gym. Garrett's spare room was comfortable enough. Dana didn't mind Chester, who had become way more affectionate now that he wasn't being ignored 16 hours a day. I started looking at apartments, something small. Found a decent one-bedroom about 20 minutes from the shop. Clean, quiet, good landlord. Signed the lease on a Thursday. Started moving in that weekend. The third attempt at contact happened while I was carrying a box up the stairs to my new place. Unknown number. Text this time. "Cole, please just talk to me. Everyone is mad at me. My parents won't stop bringing it up. Margot isn't speaking to me. Tara said I should have handled things differently. I'm alone here." The complete lack of self-awareness was almost impressive. Even now, even after everything, she still didn't see what she'd done wrong. She just saw that people were upset with her, and she couldn't figure out why. I didn't respond, just blocked the number and kept carrying boxes. Garrett helped me finish moving that weekend. Dana brought over a housewarming gift, a cast iron skillet to replace the one I'd had to leave behind. My new apartment was sparse but functional. Bed from Marketplace, desk from the same guy, a single comfortable chair I'd found at a thrift store. Chester seemed to approve. He claimed the sunny spot by the window immediately and defended it from absolutely no one. I was rebuilding, piece by piece, day by day. Bailey, according to Margot, was doing the opposite. The new boyfriend wasn't going well. Bryce had borrowed money twice already, once for a temporary cash flow thing, once for some can't-miss investment opportunity. Bailey had apparently floated him close to $600 in 3 weeks. Sound familiar? She'd always had a weakness for guys who seemed sophisticated. The difference was, I'd been smart enough to never ask her for money. Her work situation was falling apart too. She'd missed a deadline, blamed it on personal stuff, and her boss wasn't having it. There was talk of a performance improvement plan. The girl who'd mocked my job for being beneath her was suddenly in danger of losing her own. I didn't celebrate hearing this, but I didn't feel bad for her either. Consequences were just showing up where they were supposed to. The fourth attempt at contact was a letter, physical mail. She'd found my new address somehow, probably through the landlord at the old townhouse or some other paper trail I hadn't fully cut. The letter was 4 pages long. I read the first paragraph, which was mostly about how unfair everyone was being to her, how she didn't deserve this, how I'd abandoned her without giving her a chance to explain. I stopped there. The rest was more of the same, I was sure. Me. I. No acknowledgement. Just endless victim mode. I shredded it, fed Chester his dinner, watched a game with the sound low. Somewhere across town, Bailey was spiraling. And I was finally, mercifully, good. 8 weeks after the party. That's how long it took before I started feeling like myself again. Stable, solid, like I'd found my footing after months of standing on something that was always about to give way. Work was good. Hank had given me a small raise, unprompted. Said I'd earned it. Said he was glad I was still there. The unspoken message was clear. He knew what his daughter had done, and this was his way of making it right without having to say it out loud. I appreciated that, Yated. My apartment was slowly becoming an actual home. I bought a small couch, hung a few things on the walls, got a coffee maker. Chester had claimed approximately 60% of the available floor space as his personal territory, which seemed about right for a cat. I reconnected with people I'd lost touch with during the Bailey years. High school friends, guys from my apprenticeship program, people she'd dismissed as boring or basic, who turned out to be exactly the kind of steady, reliable people I needed. Garrett and Dana had me over for dinner most Sundays. We'd grill something, watch whatever game was on, talk about normal stuff. No drama, just regular people being regular. Margot had become an unexpected friend through all of this. She'd text me updates occasionally, always with the disclaimer that she wasn't spying. Just thought I should know what was going on. I appreciated the intel, because knowing helped me see any chaos coming. And chaos was definitely coming. Bailey and Bryce had moved fast. Way too fast. They were apparently living together now, after less than 2 months of dating. He'd moved into the townhouse, my old townhouse, because his lease had fallen through and he needed somewhere to stay. Translation: he'd been evicted, and Bailey was too desperate to ask questions. Margot said the whole family was worried. Hank and Susan had tried to talk to Bailey about it, but she'd accused them of being unsupportive. Said they'd never accepted Bryce. Said they liked me too much and couldn't see what was right in front of them. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. The money situation was getting worse too. Bryce had talked Bailey into some kind of investment thing. Cryptocurrency or Forex or one of those other things. She'd put in a chunk of her savings. The returns that were supposed to show up had not shown up. Shocking absolutely no one except her. Meanwhile, I was doing something I hadn't done in years. Saving money. Not covering someone else's mistakes or funding someone else's lifestyle. Just putting money aside like a normal functioning adult. I bought a newer truck. Used, but good. Low miles. Good engine. Paid cash. The 5th attempt at contact came in week 10. She showed up at the shop. I was under a D8 cat draining transmission fluid when I heard Hank's voice take on that tone he used when something was off. Rolled out from under the machine and saw her standing just inside the bay door. She looked rough. Hank was already walking toward her, looking like he was torn between being her dad and being professional. I stayed where I was, oil-stained and grease-marked and not interested at all in whatever she'd come to say. "You can't be back here, Bailey," Hank said. "This is a work site. I just need 5 minutes," she said. looking past him at me. Cole, please, just 5 minutes. I didn't move. Bryce left, she said, her voice cracking. He took everything. Money from the account, the TV, my grandmother's jewelry. He's gone. I called the cops, but they said it's a civil matter because we were living together. Hank turned to look at me, checking my reaction. I kept my face blank. That sucks, but I don't know what you want me to do about it. I screwed up, she said. Coming here, asking for help. I know it's a lot, but I don't have anyone else. My friends won't call me back. Tara blocked me after I asked to borrow money. I've got nobody. I wiped my hands on a shop rag. Took my time with it. You told me I was a placeholder, I said finally. You said I was keeping the seat warm for something better. Looks like something better came along. Sucks it didn't work out. Her face just fell apart, like the words were physically hitting her. Hank stepped forward. Bailey, you need to go. This isn't the place for this. Dad, please. Now. She left. Didn't look back. Hank came over to me after she was gone. Put a hand on my shoulder. Didn't say anything. Didn't have to. I went back to work. Transmission fluid doesn't drain itself. The full story about Bryce came out over the next few weeks, mostly through Margot's texts and the occasional update from Dana. She hears everything. Turns out Bryce wasn't just your average jerk. He was a professional con artist in a nice suit. The finance job was real, barely, but it was mostly a front for what he actually did. Find women with access to money and drain them dry. Margot did some digging and found he'd used at least 2 different last names in the past 5 years, plus a string of civil judgments and eviction filings in other counties. Bailey wasn't his first victim. She wasn't even his first victim this year. He'd done the same thing to at least 2 other women in the area before moving on. The cryptocurrency thing wasn't just a bad investment. It didn't exist. He'd had her send money to an account he controlled, showed her fake screenshots of returns, convinced her to put in more, then vanished with everything. The really brutal part? Margot found out that Bryce had been talking about Bailey to someone from his old city, called her an easy mark, said she was so desperate to prove she'd upgraded from her mechanic boyfriend that she didn't ask a single question about anything, didn't verify his job, didn't check his references. Margot said Bailey was looking at losses around $8,000, plus whatever he'd taken when he left, plus the emotional hit of realizing she'd been played by someone who never cared about her at all. Karma's got a particular kind of cruelty when it shows up. The fallout was everywhere. Bailey's credit card debt was apparently bad. The rent at the townhouse was now entirely on her, and she'd already missed 1 payment. Her car needed repairs she couldn't afford. Her work situation hadn't gotten better. If anything, it had gotten worse after she'd taken several unexplained days off during the whole Bryce disaster. Hank and Susan were helping where they could, but even parental patience runs out eventually. Hank told me quietly during a lunch break that they'd made it clear to Bailey that she needed to start owning her choices. No more rescues, no more excuses. Margot was less gentle about it. She'd apparently told Bailey exactly what she thought about her behavior over the past 3 years, including how she treated me. The conversation had not gone well. They weren't talking now. Tara and Britt had bailed, of course. Fair weather friends doing what fair weather friends do. When Bailey had clout, they were around. Now that she was struggling, they were conveniently busy. And me? I was doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I had my apartment. I had my job. I had friends who actually showed up. I had Chester, who had gotten way too comfortable in his new kingdom. I had Saturday mornings with coffee by the window, watching the world go by, feeling something I'd almost forgotten was possible. Peace. Actually feeling stable. Knowing exactly where I stood and not having to wonder if things were about to fall apart. Week 14. I came home from work on a Thursday evening. Regular day. Put my keys on the hook. Fed Chester. Started thinking about dinner. Then the buzzer went off. My building had a security door at street level. You needed to be buzzed in or you needed a key. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hit the intercom. Yeah? Cole, it's me. Please let me in. Her voice was different. Desperate. I didn't respond. Just stood there, looking at the intercom. I know you're there. She said, I can see your truck in the lot. Please. I just need to talk. 5 minutes. Then I'll leave. I thought about ignoring it, letting her stand there until she gave up. But I was curious. I buzzed her into the building, walked to my apartment door and waited. Didn't open it yet. She looked like a completely different person walking up those stairs. Not the confident, polished woman who'd laughed at my proposal in front of her family. This was someone who'd been emptied out. Hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing a sweater I recognized from years ago, back when things were different. She looked like she'd been crying for days. She stopped at my door. I opened it 6 inches, chain still on. Didn't step aside. Didn't invite her in. Just stood there in the gap and waited for whatever this was. She tried to look past me into the apartment, at my sparse furniture, at Chester, who'd retreated to his spot by the window, and was watching her with that suspicious cat look. Can I come in? She asked, barely above a whisper. No. Say what you gotta say. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red and puffy. I lost everything, she said. The townhouse. The car's getting repoed. I'm staying with my parents because I've got nowhere else. My job is barely hanging on. Margot thinks I'm awful. She paused. My dad can barely look at me, barely. That last part hit different. Hank had always adored Bailey, always made excuses for her. Even when she was clearly wrong, he'd find some reason. For him to pull back like that meant something had really broken. I wondered if Margot had finally told him everything. The conversation she'd overheard. How Bailey had been planning the rejection for weeks, all of it. Bryce took everything, she continued. All my savings. Things that mattered to me. My grandmother's ring that I was going to wear at my wedding someday. And the cops can't do anything because he was smart about it. He made sure everything looked like I agreed to it. I signed stuff. I sent money on my own. I let him into my place. Hard to miss the irony there. I still didn't say anything. Just watched her. She took a shaky breath. I've been thinking a lot about the party. About what I said. About how I treated you. Not just that night. For months before that. Maybe longer. I was wrong, she said. And getting the words out seemed to hurt. Not just about you. About everything. I thought I wanted excitement. Adventure. Someone who matched the life I thought I deserved. She let out this hollow laugh. I got exactly what I asked for. Chester meowed once, low and unimpressed. Even the cat was over it. Cole, I know I've got no right to ask this, but is there any way we could try again? She stepped toward me, eyes desperate. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but you were stable and reliable and good, and I threw it away for someone who saw me as a mark. She reached for my hand. I moved it away. I'll do anything, she said. Move somewhere new, whatever it takes. Her voice broke. I can't do this by myself. You always handled everything and now I'm drowning and I don't know what to do. There it was. Under all the apologies and the admissions, there it was. I let the quiet stretch until it got uncomfortable. So now that you've lost everything, I said, my voice flat, you want to fix things because I was useful. She flinched hearing her own words thrown back at her. I remember every word, Bailey. Every single one. You meant it. All of it. I was wrong. No, you just showed me who you really are, I corrected. You finally said out loud what you'd been thinking for months, maybe years. And now you want me to act like that never happened because your plan B blew up in your face. Tears were running down her face now. I'm not your safety net, I said. I'm not the backup plan you come running back to when the main plan falls apart. I'm worth more than what I can do for you. And I deserve someone who gets that from day one. Not just when they're out of options. Cole, please. You asked if there's any chance we could try again. I shook my head slowly. No, there's not. There never will be. What you said at that party killed whatever was between us. You don't get to bring it back now because your life went sideways. She sobbed more. You need to leave, I said. You need to figure your life out on your own. Learn how to be responsible for yourself. Stop looking for someone to carry you. I don't know how to do that. Then figure it out. I started closing the door. Goodbye, Bailey. She put her hand on the door, trying to stop it. Cole, please? I waited. After a few seconds, her hand dropped. Goodbye, I said again. Closed the door. Locked it. Listened to her stand there for a long moment. Then her footsteps going down the hallway. I went back inside and made myself dinner. Sat at my small table and ate in the quiet. I'd been called delusional for thinking I was worth marrying. Turns out I was worth a lot more than that. She thought I'd be there forever, waiting for her to decide I was good enough. She thought wrong. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.